The appraisal process for a new mortgage can be confusing and frustrating to home buyers and home sellers. That's why real estate expert Linda Craft is here to share things we need to understand about appraisals and how to get the value increased. So the home buyer pays for the appraisal, right? But it's actually done for the benefit of the lender?
Yes, and that's what's really confusing is most home buyers think that the lender is doing the appraisal for them, but it's really for themselves to make sure that there's not a lot of risk in case that home goes into foreclosure. Is the value pretty consistent with what they may have to deal with later on? It's all about risk reduction for the lender.
Okay, so why do new mortgage appraisals typically come back at the contract price or about $1,000 above?
So when an appraiser is ordered to do an appraisal, they know the contract price because their job, again, is to justify the price for the lender to make sure they're not making a bad loan. Well, just like the lender wants to reduce their risk, the appraiser also is going to reduce his. All he has to do is get to that value to say, you're okay with loaning that money. Why go any higher? And I can tell you this really disturbs buyers because sometimes they think they've negotiated such a great deal and they're just so disturbed when they find out that it's their contract price or $1,000 higher. It doesn't mean they didn't get a great deal. It just means they did not have to go any higher, so why should they stick their neck out?
Exactly. Okay, so what are the key factors the appraiser uses to value a home?
That's a great question. So it starts with location. They want to find homes in a similar, preferably neighborhood or geographical location. Square footage is very important, and they go out and measure the houses. They're also looking for utility and design. They're trying to match a one-story home to a one-story. And when I say utility, as they compare the different houses, does one have a more functional floor plan than the other, or is there obsolescence? And so they're looking at all of these and, of course, upgrades.
Right. Okay, so there are some steps that someone can take when an appraisal comes in lower than the sales price, right?
There are. And the first thing that we hope happens is that before the appraiser ever turns the appraisal into the lender, they pick up the phone and call the listing agent.
Okay.
And I can tell you that with me personally, that happens all the time. They're struggling to get the value. They want to know what comps did I use, what differences do I know about that subject property they're appraising versus the comps. When you think about an appraiser, he is an expert at measuring houses and researching data, but he's looking at data that closed in the past. It's historic. The realtor actually knows what's happening today, what the competition is, maybe even has seen, the other houses and what kind of just everything about the activity on the property is very valuable for them to make their opinion of value.
Right. Okay, there's some other steps that we can take as well.
Absolutely. So if they haven't called, which hopefully they have, but they don't always, they will go ahead and submit their final number, their appraisal to the lender. And when that happens, typically the lender will call and let you know, hey, we've got an issue. It didn't come in where we needed it. And first thing you want to do is ask the lender if you can challenge the appraisal. And that's when all the work really comes on the listing agent to come up with the data. But can you challenge it? And sometimes they will allow you to do that. So the first thing you're going to look at is square footage. Did the appraiser actually measure that home correctly? Make sure they didn't have any typos with the number of bathrooms and that sort of thing. And then you go to work to find other comps that can help support the value that you need. And hope and pray that the underwriter and the appraisal review committee will consider the new information and then possibly ask to change some of that out. Occasionally, you can get the lenders to allow you to pay for a second appraisal. And that's a great thing. But if you hit just constant brick walls, and sometimes you will because we're in a market that's going up in value, which means they're looking at something 6 months or a year ago, and today you've got a bidding war for a house. Obviously, it's worth the value someone was willing to pay. You may have to change lenders and start over.
All right, Linda, great information. Thank you.
Thank you.
For more details about the appraisal process, read Linda's blog post at lindacraft.com. And if you're thinking about selling your house, hire Linda Craft and team to defend your home's equity.